afternoon. Welcome. Greetings of peace to everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well. You've had a great week. Today, here we are, Tuesday, July 13th. We're looking at the middle of summer, and there's a lot going on in and around in terms of health. And one thing to just kind of recap on is that a lot of the COVID infections in different states are going up a little bit, up to 10 to 20%, specifically in states that haven't got vaccination rates that are high. So that's very important to note. So if you haven't gotten your vaccine, it's important to try to get that vaccine and keep yourself safe from the Delta variant. If you're traveling to places like Las Vegas or Florida or all these vacation spots, you have to be careful. And especially if you have young ones without vaccines, it's very important to keep that in mind and protect yourself and your families. Also, here in Western U.S. today, we're having a high heat wave, and the Western states, here in California, I think today the highest temperature that they've recorded is 121 degrees in Death Valley, California. A lot of the Northwest is getting hot, and there's a lot of wildfires that are coming about. And during this time, there's a lot of stress on the human body. We wanted to kind of go through a few of these issues that might come up for you, for your loved ones, specifically for young people and elderly. The elderly usually suffer in the heat when they don't have adequate temperature control in their dwellings, in their residence. So it's important to keep that in mind. And if you do have elderly that you're in contact with or that you have access to, I would suggest calling them, asking them how they're doing, how they're dealing with the heat. Are they really hydrating themselves well? Are they taking care of their intake, their nutrients? It's very important to keep that in mind and really monitor that for them, because sometimes it's difficult and it's hard to keep track of your, for example, water intake. Most people will forget about just taking basic water, specifically when it gets warmer and hotter in temperatures in and around the cities. And there's temperatures right now, in California, anywhere from 95 degrees up to 110. So it is a heat wave. And during the heat wave, there's things to look out for. There's people that suffer from things like heat stroke, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, of course, sunburn if you're outside, and also heat rash. And then on top of that, you have people that have dehydration. Dehydration is something that creeps up on us slowly. And the key is to drink water when you're not thirsty, so that you can maintain your body's nutrients and electrolytes in a balanced manner before you get the stress of the heat on your body. A lot of people are, walking outdoors because it's the summertime. They're doing a lot of activities. And it's important for us to keep in mind that while doing these activities, we have to maintain our hydration as well as protect our skins. Your skin is the largest organ of your body from the negative effects of the UV rays from the sun. So that's very important to keep in mind. Recommend as SPF sunscreen or sunblock of 45 or 50 and above. So that's very important. You can get them at places like Trader Joe's. You can get the spray, you can get the cream. Put that on when you go out. It's very important to keep that in mind. And a lot of people kind of neglect and forget that if you're going to stay outdoors more than 15, 20 minutes, you should utilize a sunscreen or a sunblock for that matter, for yourself as well as for your children if you're spending a lot of times outdoor. That's very important to keep in mind. And with the summer heat, of course, we get, the number one thing that people get mostly is heat stroke. And heat stroke, there's certain things to look for, and it's important to keep in mind. And the first thing that we look for is increased body temperature. Increased body temperature, if you're monitoring it with a thermometer, it's defined as, 103 or higher. If you see that somebody is consistently having a temperature of 103 and higher, and it's consistent, and they have hot, dry, damp skin, and their pulse is usually going to be thready and high. They'll have what's known as a tachycardia, or a very high pulse. Sometimes it is accompanied with things like, they might say, they're getting a headache, possible dizziness. It could also extend to feeling nauseous, and worst case scenario, they'll experience lack of consciousness or possibly faint. So this would be the telltale signs of a heat stroke. And in this condition, of course, you want to move the individual to a cooler place and take them to a cooler place from wherever they are. And then what the goal is to lower the body temperature. You can do it with a cool bath, cold water. Some people put they get the, what do you call it, damp towels or cloths, and they put them on the joints. That is usually what's needed to happen for the temperature to drop. Heat stroke, by definition, is a medical emergency. So the advice is to call 911 and to get these people needed help as soon as possible. It's too late to give them anything to drink and things like that. It's just, you cool the body down and you get them professional help. That's the worst case scenario for a heat stroke. And again, high body temperature, 103 or higher, hot, red, dry, damp skin, fast, strong pulse. They might actually feel their own palpitations, and then accompanied with headache, dizziness in the head, as well as possible nausea, possible confusion, and then worst case scenario, fainting or loss of consciousness. It's important to keep that in mind. And that would tell you that there's a heat stroke happening. Call 911, get them professional help, and take them to a cooler spot. Put the damp towels on the joints. Try to decrease their body temperature. That's very important. And specifically, if there are elderly patients or elderly people that you know, and they're having these issues, then it's important for them to get help as soon as possible. Time is very important. We don't want to lag. We don't want to second guess. Get immediate help as soon as you can. Sometimes the elders are going to be in a facility which they can be monitored, and they live in these facilities. That's a better situation for them, because help will be on its way much quicker than normal. But otherwise, if they're at their own house, let them know, call 911, and let them get help as soon as possible. So that was heat stroke. The other issue is heat cramps. Some people experience this because people don't like to leave their routine exercises. People like to get their exercises. They get them 3 to 4 times a week, or every day, or however they do it. And unfortunately, during the summertime, when you're outdoors, obviously the summer heat and the sun get to you, especially in the current situation where there's a heat advisory and there's a warning, there's a heat wave. So usually the two things to look for during exercises: very heavy sweating, and then you get muscle pain or cramps or spasms, as we call them. And some people might attribute it to the activity that they're doing, but typically, if it's accompanied by heavy sweating and you get that spasm and you get the cramps, then that's definitely what we define as heat cramps. The idea there would be, once you notice that, you stop the physical activity that you're doing. Again, move to a cooler place under the shade of a tree, inside an air conditioning unit if you're outside, whatever you can do. And then you need to get some liquids right away. If it's heat cramps, you need to get some liquids. Await for the cramps to decrease, obviously, and do not continue the exercise or the activity that you're doing if it's causing these cramps. If the cramps last more than an hour, if you've done everything, you've gone to a cooler place, you've drank, and you're relaxing, you stop the activity and the cramps are still persistent after 60 minutes, then it's advisable to get professional medical help. Get yourself to the nearest ER or urgent care so they can take care of you and give you some fluids. Also, if you're on a low sodium diet, or if you have underlying heart condition and you get these cramps, it's very important to get medical help right away. So that's for heat cramps. Again, intense sweating during exercise and muscle spasms. What do? You get to a cooler place, you get some liquids in you. If the cramps or the muscle spasms last longer than an hour, then you seek medical help. Call your urgent care, call your ER, get some medical help. If you're on a low sodium diet and you have heart issues, or you have heart issues and you get these cramps, you should seek medical attention right away. You don't want to play with that at all. Okay, so those are the heat cramps. The third thing with heat is heat exhaustion. So this is another term that has a set definition, which we need to know and differentiate from heat stroke and heat cramps, which is known as heat exhaustion. So heat exhaustion also has the heavy sweating. You get heavy sweating, cold, pale, clammy skin. You get the high pulse. You get the cramps. So it's sort of like a combination of the heat stroke and the heat cramp symptoms. Okay, you're weak, you're tired, you get the dizziness, you get the headache, and you're fainting, you're passing out. It's very important to see that distinction. You get the heavy sweating, you have the cold, pale, clammy skin. Cold, pale, clammy skin, as opposed to in heat stroke, you had hot, red, dry skin. That's heat stroke. Heat exhaustion, cold, clammy skin, fast, weak pulse, muscle cramps, weakness, dizziness, headaches, and you're fainting. This is heat exhaustion. That's important to differentiate. If you do have heat exhaustion, again, all three conditions require you to move to a cooler place. Loosen your clothes. Put cool, wet clothes on your body, or take a cool bath, and then also take some water. Take some water. The only thing you don't take water for is the heat stroke. Okay, heat stroke, you do not take the water. But for the heat exhaustion and the heat cramps, you can take liquids, no problem. For heat exhaustion, if you experience throwing up, your symptoms are getting worse. Your dizziness, your headache, your fainting, nausea, vomiting, your pulse is thready and it's getting very high, seek medical help immediately. If your symptoms are lasting more than an hour again, definitely you need to go into the ER and get your fluids and get replenishment. It's very important. So these are the three things that are most prevalent. And the other thing, of course, that we know when there's high heat warnings, or generally in the summertime, we look for is the sunburn. People go out in the sun for long, extended times doing activities, whether they're hiking, biking, picnicking, anything, and they're in the sun and they're there without any kind of protection. The recommendation is after 15 to 20 minutes in the sun that you have some type of sunblock with SPF 50 or higher for yourself, for your children. Painful red, warm skin is the sign. You'll feel it. You'll feel the symptoms. And then if it's severe, you'll get the muscle pain and the spasms. That's something which can progress. But blisters on the skin for sunburn is a telltale sign. You'll start getting blisters, and obviously you'll notice the redness in the skin. Red, warm skin, painfulness, and then obviously the key is to get out of that situation. What do? You go to an area of shade, which will be a cooler area as well. The sunburned areas, put cool clothes on them. And also, you can take a cool bath, lower your temperature, moisturizing lotion on the sunburned areas. And the blisters, the advice is to leave them alone. Don't pick at them. Don't do anything that would aggravate those blisters. That's with sunburn. Okay, so it's important. Get yourself a good SPF block, and they have the natural ones at places like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. Or you can go Walmart and just get the generic ones. That's available as well. That's better than getting nothing. You have to get some type of thing. If you're going to be in the sun more than 15 minutes, it's very important to protect yourself. Some people have sensitive skin, and if you spend enough time in the heat, you might get what's known as heat rash. Heat rash is like a set of blisters that start coming up in different areas of your body on the skin. Usually, neck, chest, the groin area, elbow creases. These places will get you these little clusters of rash, and that's important. And when you get that, stay in a cool, dry place. Keep the rash dry so it heals. And you can use different types of lotions and powders to keep the blisters from expanding. So that's basically nourishing it and to keep it from getting worse. Those are the things that we need to keep cognizant of when there is a heat wave. And most importantly is to get good nutrition and good liquid hydration, because the worst case scenario is underlying all these conditions is the dehydration issue. If you have dehydrations, your organs, your skin, your lungs, your brain, you're not getting enough nutrients, and you'll get groggy and sleepy and sedated. And we don't want that. We want you to be, up, alive, energetic, and well hydrated. It's important to keep these things in mind. The summer and the heat, it's a good time for everyone. Everyone's leisurely traveling and doing activities outdoors with their children, with their parents, with their families. It's very important to do that and enjoy yourself, but it's always important to keep in mind these things that might come up. If you need further information on these things, you can always comment and ask questions, and we can help you, get more information on these issues. If you need any type of IV hydration, any type of treatments, you can always reach me, and we can refer you to the nearest place where they have these types of services for you. Some people do get IV hydration in terms of just for nutritional value every 2 to 3 weeks or once a month, and that does very good nutritional supplement for the body, whereas the IV is absorbed 90% plus, as opposed to the supplements that people take orally, which are only absorbed 30 to 50% rates. So the IV does get you more nutrients, and there are facilities that you can look up and ask us about, and we can tell you where to go. Specifically, if you're in Southern California, and if not anywhere else, we can find you good quality facilities that you can go and get IV hydration if needed for yourself, for your parents, elders, and keep you hydrated and healthy. With that, I'd like to bid you farewell and goodbye until we see you next week. Hope you've learned something new and that you can implement one of these things in your life and help people around you lead more healthy lives and be aware and cognizant of things that are going on around them. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.